All right. Good things are starting. Well, this will be interesting. The first ever of what we hope to be many podcasts. Well, now that it started, I have nothing to say. But I guess the best way to start is by introducing ourselves, myself.
Yourself first.
I'm Fabricio Barral, and joined with me today is my co-host, Isaac Carlson, who's currently making himself tea.
Making some tea for the cough and the sore throat. Excited to be here.
While we're watching Halloween, which is the movie we're watching, the 1979 movie, Halloween.
Not the remake.
Introducing Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie. And so this is a podcast, but also an audio commentary track, so I guess when we post this online, I'll be sure to make it so that
do some
so that you
trimming.
can, so you know where that it just starts.
Right. Yeah. So you can match it up for your own.
Match it up for your own convenience. Yeah. For the funny thing about this is that since we're just doing this, we have no way of knowing if it's recording properly.
That's true. Yeah, because we're just looking at this. It occurs to me.
There's the music.
Like watching over these opening credits.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder and want to go back and look at some actual directorial commentaries because it's kind of hard to think of things to talk about over opening credits.
You want to know what's funny? Is I've actually listened to a ton of John Carpenter DVD commentary tracks.
Okay.
I've listened to Big Trouble in China, Escape from New York, The Thing, and all of those he did with Kurt Russell. And what's amazing is that when you hear them talking, they talk about pretty much everything but the movie.
That is fun.
They'll talk about their kids and my son is starting baseball now and stuff like that. They'll talk about people they remember, but they'll never they won't talk about the movie or things they did. And they'll even say, I forget if it was Big Trouble in China or one of those where at one point near the end of the movie, Haddonfield, Illinois. Hey, at one point near the end of the movie, they say. We're sorry that we're not talking about the movie. It's just that when we get together, this is how we are. We don't really talk about the movies we've done. We just talk about things.
I mean, in general, it actually kind of makes me wonder if, now that movies are mostly digital packages, if, the, commentary is just kind of a formality at this point, or if that's still something that,
What are you talking about?
Well, because the compact disc, part of why, bonus features and
I can't wait to see if the tea comes on the track.
I'm sure it will. And digital commentary makes its way onto the DVDs because people don't want to pay that much for just the movie. They want a package if they're paying for a physical object. Whereas a lot of people with digital stuff, they just want the movie. So,
that's why another reason why I always like to get the DVDs is because I love commentary tracks are so much fun. That specifically, as in theory, a DVD doesn't really need to have anything for me except a DVD commentary track. Preferably with the director if it was made while he was alive.
Yeah,
ideally, but and maybe some of the stars or the writer. To me, that's the most important thing. If you just have that, I'm fine, and I can listen to it over and over again. Just listening to any director talk about a movie is really fascinating. I forget who it was who said this. Maybe I think it was Paul Thomas Anderson, actually, who said, I didn't really go to film school. I just watched a bunch of movies and listened to the DVD commentary tracks.
The commentary specifically?
And then I would just learn a lot about how they made the movies. And I thought, okay, that's how you do it.
That's interesting. Although that doesn't really work in your example with John Carpenter since he's not really talking about making a movie.
No, but also, we're not listening. Yeah, but also with Thomas Anderson, that's kind of cheating because his dad was a director anyway.
Yeah, that is cheating.
So who gives a fuck?
Plenty of access.
Who gives a rat's ass? Wait, I'm confusing him with Robert Downey Sr. Never mind. He knew Robert Downey Sr., but his dad was not a film director. His dad, Paul Thomas Anderson, was a radio host who was also a TV personality known as Ghoulardi in Ohio.
Where did he get that name?
It was I don't know the origins exactly. I know Ghoulardi. I know the character because in Chicago we have Svengoolie.
Yes, we do.
Which is that guy who does that. That was because of Ghoulardi.
By Ghoulardi.
That was basically the passing of the torch kind of thing.
I see.
There was Ghoulardi, and now there's Svengoolie. I'm not joking.
I believe you. I'm curious where you learned this.
Well, I just knew. I've watched Svengoolie a lot as a kid, and I also know an old boss of mine.
Okay.
Is from Cleveland, and he would talk about Ghoulardi. And he actually told me a story about how when he met Paul Thomas Anderson, the one thing you told him was, "Oh, I'm a big fan of your dad." And Paul Thomas Anderson.
I really admire your father's work.
And Paul Thomas Anderson was just, "Oh yeah, thanks, it's nice," and just walked away. It's like, I thought that was such a funny story.
Distinctive, not just I love your movies.
Which actually, that story is a good segue into why I picked this movie. I don't know if you know why I picked this.
No, I don't. I thought it was because we're coming up on Halloween.
See, that's the amazing thing is that that's the biggest coincidence is that we're in October and we're watching Halloween, but it has nothing to do with the fact that it's not because of that at all. We're watching this because this was one of the movies we saw.
That's right.
In MIA
when we were
/MIP
when we were film school.
When we were our first semester in film school.
Yeah.
And that was the reason I picked it because I thought, well, it would be a good chance to talk about how we know each other, and just that way. It would be a good opening episode while Mike Myers is murdering his older sister. This is a really good scene. This is a really good transfer of the movie, actually.
Yeah,
I think this is Blu-ray.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Very nice.
I think they're actually going to make. I think they're releasing another Blu-ray of this movie.
Speaking of our film school
really
experience,
good.
though, I seem to remember.
Well, we should start off. If we're going to talk about it, that's kind of what I was going for this episode, is just introduce us and how we know each other. And I just wanted to talk about. Again, I can't wait to see if this audio even works, if it sounds good.
Yeah, maybe garbage.
Oh, I can't wait. And then we'll have to redo this whole thing. Oh, that'll be fucking. Don't get a kids. The lesson to learn from how long we've spent trying to set this up is don't get a Mac laptop if it just has a headphone.
Yeah,
port.
you need the microphone jack too.
Fucking, I hate Apple.
One person's got a laptop, one
Apple.
person's got a nice microphone.
But they don't connect.
Yeah, just like a man who's very drunk, you can have all the right parts, but sometimes it just doesn't go in.
You're impotent. Yeah. You're very impotent.
That's kind of where we're at.
In many ways, which is the theme of Halloween.
We've got technological whiskey dick right now.
Sure, that's exactly what we have while you're making your tea. But yeah, I wanted to talk about October 30th, 1978, so we've jumped forward.
Halloween.
Not Halloween. Day before.
Day before Halloween.
I wonder if I bet if we can hear the rustling of the leaves, it's getting louder.
Yeah.
Definitely we'll be able to hear that on the soundtrack. But
I think you're right.
Maybe I'll just lower that a little bit.
One notch, all right.
Anyway, I'm going to be doing that a lot throughout this.
Up, down, up, down,
it's rain, not leaves. It's the rain. Okay. But yeah, I wanted to talk about how we first met because I thought this would be a good way to start.
To bring us into it, sure.
So
let's talk about how
I brought up MIA, MIP, which stands for what again? Moving Image Art.
Moving Image Art.
And Moving Image Production, which were two classes which were conjoined at the hip.
Yes.
In the sense that they were related classes. You had to take one and take the other. And these were the first
classmates.
MIA was the first class I had at Columbia. No, that's not true. Well, it was on the first day, but it wasn't the first class. It was the second class I had.
Yeah.
But it was the first film class I had at Columbia, which was the major I had. And that's where I met you, Tommy, and Alan, who would we would all go on to become very close.
Yes, very good friends.
Very good friends. And
unlikely.
But there's a whole story in that. And I wonder if do you remember everyone who was in that class?
No.
Because I do.
It's impressive.
Because
I remember some of the highlights, which is a cool thing to say.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Some of the highlights of
the things that we remember about our classmates in the class, things that stood out in the course of 90 minutes. But I remember, they say you never forget your first time, and I do. I remember my first film course. I remember everyone in that class. And if you want, I can name them all for you. Okay, so there's obviously the usual suspects, the easy ones. It's you, me, so Fabricio, Isaac, Alan, and Tommy.
Right.
That's four. There was the quad pod, as we started calling ourselves later. There was Alec Masterson, tall blonde kid. Then there was Alex.
Still a good friend, actually.
You were good friends with him?
Yeah, Alec Masterson. Yeah, I've got on really well since then.
Well, that's good to know. Do you know what he's doing?
Yeah, I mean, he just graduated. He's going to LA looking for work.
Oh, he's going to LA? Good for him. He'll probably be more successful than both of us.
Yeah. And of course, he's doing being a tall, handsome dude.
Which means he can get acting jobs.
He's looking for both acting and
I hate him, and I love him at the same time. I hate how naturally endowed he is.
So more power to the game.
And at the same time, I love him because he was a very relaxed personality.
Yeah, very easygoing. Very easygoing.
Do you remember where he was from? Was he from California?
No.
Was he from here?
He's from Naperville. I went to his house.
Oh, he's from Naperville, which is not where this takes place.
No.
But it isn't. That's Illinois.
He has a Mustang that his father bought him. in Naperville.
I hate him even more now.
Exactly. I was gonna say if you need
Jesus
some more,
Christ.
if you need some more fodder for your jealousy.
Oh my God, he's
He's also lived a privileged youth.
He's got attractive body. He's tall. He's blonde. That's a triple whammy.
And if it weren't enough, he's also just a nice guy.
He's a nice guy, and he's got a cool car. God, I hate him. I love him, but I hate him. I'm jealous, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I said Alec, and do you remember Alex?
No, remind me.
Alex was the kid from Detroit.
Is he the one who wanted to do the horror film?
Was he? Did he want to do a horror film?
Like bigger guy, curly hair.
No.
Okay.
Isn't that bigger guy, curly hair? Isn't that Alec? I mean, he didn't have curly hair. It was blonde.
Well,
but
he was tall. I'm talking like a bigger guy.
No, he wasn't. No. Was that also? Was his name also Alex?
There may have been two Alexes.
Oh fuck, there might have been, because I remember this kid was from Detroit, and he was. You'll remember him from the way I describe him.
Okay.
He was the one from the moment you showed up. You thought this guy already seems like he's working in the film business.
Okay.
And the one he was the one who was like, if one of these things were not like the other, he was the one who, he wasn't the worst person. He was just the one who seemed like most ahead of the class, and like, why is he here?
Right, sure. Okay.
You know who I'm talking about. I don't want to call him a douche.
No, sure, but he would like talk about the fact that he'd had a couple films and festivals before showing up at school.
And it was just like, well, why are you here then? What are you getting out of this?
The other person who falls into that category, good segue, Aaron Katien. Who was the producer, who looks like a producer, talked like a producer, very tall, slender, had a bit of a like a voice kind of like this.
Is that who I'm thinking of? Is that Alex? Is that Aaron? Was his name Aaron?
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking of Aaron. I mixed up their names. God, well, I guess I don't remember
Aaron Katien. Also, weirdly, still good friends with him.
Really?
From a distance, because he's in California.
Right. That's who I'm thinking of. I thought his name was Alex. His name was Aaron.
Yeah.
So Alex was the tall kid.
Alex was the kid who wanted to do like the slasher movie that actually makes me think of Halloween.
And he was the tall one with the curly hair.
That's Alec. Tall, slender, curly hair.
Not slender, big. You said the curly one. That's Alex.
That's Alex.
Okay, so we got it. So there's the four of us. There's
Alec, Aaron,
and Alex, who was the tall one who had like the Jufro kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay, now I definitely remember everyone.
Now we're on the same syllable.
There were the two Asian kids.
Yes. Okay.
Who I remember. I don't remember. I say Asian only because I don't know what part of Asia.
Yeah, don't want to get that one wrong.
Well, also I think they're Americans. They're from like I think they're suburban.
Third generation.
I think they're like suburban kids from. I think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but their names were. I remember Danny.
I remember Danny.
And Scott.
I don't remember Scott.
Scotty.
I remember Scotty at all.
Maybe I'm forgetting the name. Maybe it's my fault. But Scotty was the one who was. He was cool. I mean, we hung out with him in class a lot. He was. I don't know. I could describe him physically like a brown skin tone, and he would wear clothing. all the kids.
That's very helpful.
He would wear the clothing.
For those of you who didn't hear, Fabricio said he wore clothing.
I remember he had a beanie of some kind. I could be wrong.
Okay, that helps. I remember it.
He wasn't fat, but he had like a round face.
Okay, yes, I'm getting with you now.
Yeah, Scotty.
Yes.
I call him Scotty, and I would think of Star Trek, like beam me up, Scotty. I would say that, and I would say you're Scotty. That makes me. I guess I'll be Spock or something, or McCoy.
McCoy, sure.
Anyway, there's two of them. Okay, so who am I forgetting? Well, there's Team Rocket. That's two there. That's 11.
Let's elaborate on Team
Rocket.
Rocket.
We'll talk about them later. Everyone who's actually listening to this will think, who the hell is Team Rocket? Well, we'll explain that later. So now we're at 11. We're on 11. Okay, so we have Team Rocket. Who else was in there? I remember more. It's easy to remember because Team Rocket had the only girl in the class. Oh, no. Don't worry. I'm getting to that. But I'm just trying to remember everybody else. There's Solomon.
I was going to say we had two. Solomon being one of them.
Solomon. Don't worry. I know what you're getting to.
Okay.
Don't worry. I know what you're getting to. There's Solomon, who was also in that class. So now we are at 12. I remember it being around 15. Okay, I feel like I'm forgetting someone else who's not that person. Trust me, I haven't forgotten that person. But I want to say
very obvious ones.
I'm saving that the one that I think we're both thinking of. Saving him for last.
Of course.
The other one that I think we're both thinking of. God damn it! I remembered them all the other day.
Another man who's maintained friendship with us to a certain extent.
Again, not him. Again, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm saving him.
Well, we're not delaying Ferris.
Yes! Oh my god, I forgot Ferris. That was the one
I thought you were delaying Ferris.
No, I wasn't delaying Ferris. Oh my god, I forgot Ferris. I feel terrible. That's 13. Ferris, who was half the stories we can tell
The
about
light
that
of
class.
both our lives in that class.
The one thing, if half the stories we can talk about in that class have to do with Ferris.
Yes.
Oh, and then don't forget Dylan.
I did forget Dylan.
Yeah, but you remember him, right? Now that I'm mentioning him, he's a skinny. I worked with him on.
Yes,
he was
he's
a skinny
nice.
one.
He was a nice guy.
He's nice.
Yeah.
I'm still friends with him on
He had a very
Facebook.
prominent Adam's apple.
Yes, that's one way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
He had a very prominent Adam's apple.
He worked with you and Tommy on the film about the watch thief, right?
Yes, he did. Now that is, as I call, 14. There's 2 more. And I just remembered one of them. I was about to not mention him. But this one, it's not the one you're thinking of. This one is, actually, I don't remember his name. But I remember his look.
Give me looks. I might
You
remember.
know how I remember him? I don't know if you worked on this one. He worked with the other person I'm about to mention on one short film where they're in the elevator and he's stealing the watch. He's a watch thief.
Right.
And the one guy we both know, who we're going to mention, he looks at this guy who I can't remember his name, I saw, because he closed the elevator on him, on this one person, and he didn't regret it. But the other guy's looking at him like, I disdain you. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do know, but I don't know his name.
Oh God. I'm going to feel so bad because I can't remember his name.
That's the only one.
Is there a way we could look that one up?
That's the only, well, I mean, do you still have your Columbia account? We can
No.
look it up through that.
And you don't either, right?
No, I think they cancel it like a year after you leave.
Oh, right, because you graduated early. Okay, so no. So I guess we can't look it up. Damn it.
Yeah,
what was his name?
that's a rough one.
I'm sure if we just start mentioning random names, we could get to it.
Ryan.
Dan, James. It probably is a generic name like that. I hate to insult him.
No, I know.
Because I
But
feel
I think
like
you're right.
there's always the slight chance that he'll listen to us and think, oh, come on, guys, how could you forget me? We got along
We didn't
so
forget
well.
you. We just don't know your name.
We just forgot your name. I know I'm going to remember it right after this. And I'm going to feel so bad. But we don't have much to say about him anyway, because he was just like, he was quiet. for the
Nice
most
guy,
part. He
but
was
not
nice,
very involved in
not very involved, and was just
many
kind
of
of
our
quiet.
conversations or projects.
If I do remember his name, I'm just going to put it like in the comments of this,
Yeah.
under this, say, oh, here's his name, by the way. Which is kind of weird. But okay, so the last but not least, that would be 15, so what is that, 16 I just mentioned?
Yeah,
Or 15?
15 that we've mentioned so far, so we're missing one. And we know
And
who
we
it
know
is.
it is last, and certainly not least. I saved the best for last in many ways, I think, even though we could disagree on who would be the best. But Esley is the most wonderful person, and so I thought I should save him for last.
Yeah.
First of all, if there's a chance that he listens to it, think, oh, they forgot me.
No, we never would.
We would never forget Esley.
We treasure you.
Esley is a treasure. Esley, we miss you, and we want you to come back, even though he hasn't left. He still lives in Chicago.
No, he's around. He's somewhat in. He kind of like ducks in and out of our lives, like maybe once a year, every year.
Yeah. I wish we spent more time with him.
And we like,
especially now that Tommy
is gone
forever.
Don't
say that, please. Don't say that. But Tommy is gone back to Ohio, to
the
Cincinnati.
great city of Cincinnati,
and,
Ohio.
and Esley was from Ohio anyway, not Cincinnati.
Right.
I always forget where. I think he always says
Better part of Ohio.
it's not Davenport. That's Iowa.
One of the 3 C's. It's got to be one of the 3 C's.
The-
Dayton. He's from near Dayton.
Yeah, of course. The 3 C's.
The only non-3 C city.
Well, there's Toledo.
No one cares about Toledo.
Oh, who cares about Dayton?
You're right. Carry on.
No offense, Esley, but no one cares. But yeah, Esley is wonderful. He's probably if I were to take a guess, I'd say he was probably the most naturally talented person, enthusiastic in that class. I will never forget the first assignment we ever had in that class. And we had to divide ourselves up into what we would do. One of us would be the director, one of us handle the camera. I just remember Esley being, I'll do the sound. And from that moment on, I said, that's great. Because he was enthusiastic. He was just naturally said, I'll do the sound. And that's what he likes to do. He likes to do sound stuff. And I think, wow, that makes you already a special person.
Yeah, that's not an easy
Not
thing
many
to-
people just
to jump
naturally
onto.
want to do sound. And so Esley is just, for that alone,
We
I
should
think.
mention outside of that, he's a very talented editor.
He's a talented editor. He's a talented sound designer. He's a talented everything.
He's got some good motion graphics chops.
He's got good motion graphics stuff. I follow him on Instagram, and he's always posting stuff that he shot, and I think this looks really good. So he's a good DP, as far as I know.
Just an all-around talented.
All around, he's a talented person. I wish we hung out with him more, not just because he's talented, but because he's just so easygoing. And we got along well, I think. I think, along with Tommy, he was one of those people who would just naturally laugh at all the stupid things I would say.
Yeah.
Because I would say a lot of stupid things that I don't take back.
No. I wouldn't expect you to.
But now that we've gotten through everyone, plus that one man who's the student whose name we can't remember.
We do apologize.
I can't wait till I remember. It probably is something like Jimmy or James.
It'll come to you in a dream.
I know it's something like that. Yeah. It's a very white boy name. What do you want me to tell you? I know for a fact that he was a white boy. But so we got all of them, and let's move on to the teachers. We had 2 teachers, even though the way the classroom was set up physically, there were 2 rooms that were separated by a curtain, which I don't know whose idea that was.
Yeah, that was a bad idea.
Terrible. There should have just been a fucking wall. But every now and then we would interact with the kids from the other side of the room, who was a different...
Unfortunate.
They were having the same class, but it was just a different group, so we would never interact with them. So I don't see them as part of our class.
I don't know, though, because...
I don't know any of them. I do not know anyone from that group.
When we workshopped, like, the final films we did at the end of the
semester, we were all together.
As one gigantic class with them.
Yeah, but we didn't work with them. Our groups were in our own class again. So that doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, that doesn't really count. But yeah, our 2 teachers for MIA was Katie Kaczynski,
our good friend Alan Marshall despises.
Truly hates with a passion, and everyone thought I was trying to. Well, I didn't. Here's something that everyone would tell me that I didn't, that I wasn't aware of. It wasn't intentional. But everyone would always tell me after class, like, "Why are you trying to seduce the teacher?"
No, yeah. That was very not evident.
So Katie Kaczynski, I would say she's got to be in her 30s.
Confusing,
right? She's not that old. She's not old.
No,
she was young. She was a young woman.
She's in our age bracket.
Oh yeah, also our age bracket in the sense that she's not. She was not visibly much older than us.
She's not a middle-aged woman.
No, I wouldn't even say close. If I were to guess her age now, since it's been so long since we had that class, I would say she's maybe like 34, 35. If I had to guess.
Right. Which
would mean by the time when we had the class, she was like around 31, 30.
Right.
I honestly believe she could have been younger or older. She had a youthful face, youthful body. You know, it was like, and I mean that in the politest way. But for some reason, and I thought I was just being nice. I was like this with everyone. But for some reason, the way I remember it, I wasn't intentionally trying to be. I wasn't trying to charm her.
Sure.
Okay, you're doing that thing now.
Yeah.
Sure. But I wasn't trying to charm her in any way. But for some reason, everyone always acted like I was trying to seduce the teacher.
Because you would ask her about like her plans, like right afterwards.
Because I thought that was the thing. I would ask our other teacher, Dale Chapman. D-Chaps. I would ask him the same thing.
I didn't hear you asking him that. I just saw you asking, like, where she was going to go grab a drink after class.
I thought that was a nice... I don't know. I guess people in this country have a different definition of seduction than I do.
Sure.
Because I'm not from here. Let's not forget. I am a foreigner to this country.
Yes, Fabrizio has lived less than 3 years of his life outside of the United States.
No, less than 6 months.
Less than 6 months of his life outside of the United States.
And yet
therefore is disgusted and confused by some honky traditions.
Yes, I hate American capitalism.
United States.
I despise American television. I clearly sound nothing like an American.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, I just thought, again, maybe it's just a me thing. Look, here's the thing. I would never, just throwing it out there, I would never seduce a woman by asking her for a drink or anything. I would just say, like Tom Cruise at the end of Eyes Wide Shut, I would say, I guess there's only one thing left to do. Let's fuck. that's my approach.
That's one way to seduce, yeah.
It's not seduction. It's more like a proposition. I don't seduce. I find that to be a waste of my time. It's very valuable, my time.
Yeah, the more time to watch Halloween, I guess.
Yeah, and talk about teachers I did or did not seduce.
Did not.
But our male teacher that was MIA was with Katie, which was a class where we discussed movies, we watched movies, and then we had to write papers about it. And then MIP, which was motion image production, was where we would shoot shorts and show them to the class.
Yeah, one half of it was like the artistic, like thematic half.
How do movies
understanding
work?
films,
and the
other half was how do films work from
practically,
a technical standpoint.
Yeah, and the teacher for that class was Dale Chapman.
Yeah.
D-Chaps, as I called him. And it was a name that stuck.
Yeah, as caught on pretty quickly.
Well, I was the first one to call him. I remember distinctly. I was the first one to call him that.
I have no idea, so I'll believe you.
No, I'm pretty certain.
I don't doubt you.
I said, I'll call you D-Chaps. And he said,
remember
okay.
A different kind of special connection between you and D-Chaps.
Well, I'm going to get to that. I'm about to get to that. Because the first class, the first day, this is a wonderful little anecdote, I think. We were, Dale. The thing about Dale Chapman I should put up front is that his personality was one of a person who did not really care about the class.
Yeah,
I would say that he helped us when we had questions, and he would tell us what he thought, but he did not really care about us doing the work.
And quite blunt.
Quite blunt about it.
I remember the first class essentially opened up with him talking about how this class was kind of a waste of money, but hey, you guys are here, so we might as well.
I loved him for that. From that moment, I thought, this guy is real. I like this fucker. And then he told us we had to do this thing with notebooks where we had to keep a diary or journal of things.
Which he referred to as some sort of Columbia bullshit.
And he would never, as a teacher, he was supposed to check it, but he never checked it. He did not care. And so none of us did it. Because we thought, why would we do this? This is ridiculous. We loved Dale Chapman. I don't know if the whole class loved him, but as a group, we all loved Dale Chapman.
Oh, yeah.
I can speak on behalf of you, me, Alan, and Tommy. And I know for a fact that out of all of us, Tommy had him so many times after that class as a teacher. Continuously, he would just have Dale Chapman. And I wish I had Dale Chapman as my teacher.
Yeah, he was quite excellent.
Oh, yeah, he was a wonderful person to be around, personality. And the first day we were there, he said something. He referenced a movie, but he didn't. He just said, "That's a line from my favorite movie. I bet you can't guess which one it is." And I just automatically blurted out Dr. Strangelove. And he said, "Yeah, how'd you know?" Wait a second. I'm about to get to what you're talking about.
Okay.
And I said, "How'd you know?" And everyone looked at me. And I said, "Oh, lucky guess." And I just knew it. And I remember, I'll never forget the look Alan gave me, where he just looked at me with like this grin, like, look at this guy. And I knew from that moment on, Alan and I were going to get along just fine.
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit on that story.
The thing is, that's how I remember it. Now, you and Tommy have both told me a different version of the story where he didn't say the quote.
He did not say a line.
He just said something. He just mentioned that he had a favorite movie.
No, you asked him on like just a while there was like a random like break. You're like, "What's your favorite movie, Dale?" And he was like, "My favorite movie," and he was like, "I'll give you 3 guesses," and you said, Dr. Strangelove, which was immediately correct. And he was quite surprised. But
how'd you know?
Immediately.
I don't remember like that because I don't remember asking him the question of
you didn't have any hint. That's what made it more surprising. Well, if it had been a quote, I mean, that would have been reasonable. Because someone would be like, "Oh yeah, I know that line."
I remember the quote.
It came out of nowhere.
But even the thing for me is that in my version, it's just as impressive to me because I hadn't seen the movie at that point.
Oh, okay.
So he said a quote to a movie that I didn't remember, that I hadn't seen.
Why it's stuck
to me, that's just as impressive.
Else's memory, though, is because we knew that you had no way, there was no hint about it.
Okay, so I guess if all of you were saying that's how it happened, I guess I'll have to take your word for it, like the Berenstain Bears thing, that there was no hint, there was no quote.
No hint.
I remember there being a quote, and maybe you just all didn't hear it because you weren't paying attention.
Maybe. That's possible.
It's all very possible that since it was not during class, you all were doing your own thing, and then after he said, "Yeah, how'd you know?" and he was just so shocked and everyone started paying attention, I'm willing to believe that too. But I'll take your word for it for now that I did not know
you just
in any way what movie. I just guessed his favorite movie, and he was so surprised. And from that moment on, I think he thought, okay, this kid, this guy.
It's a very specific kind of ESP.
And that's the only time that it happened
you
in that
open up
class.
like a fortune-telling booth where instead of telling fortunes, you just guess people's favorite movies.
I feel like
charge 25 cents.
I feel like I could, although I would never be able to guess your
favorite
movie
cartoon
until after you. I'd know it because you told me.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have guessed it.
Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Actually, it's changed.
Oh, it has it?
Yeah.
What is it now?
Swiss Army Man is the new favorite.
Really? That's your new favorite movie of all time?
I need to watch it again, so I guess I shouldn't say that yet because I've only seen it twice.
But when you saw it, you thought this is the greatest movie I've ever seen.
The best movie I've seen in a long time.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's a fair. I guess you've always had a very interesting. All 4 of us. Now, I guess it's time after we talked about Dale, we talked a little bit about Katie and how I tried to seduce her that without my knowledge. Mm-hmm. I guess it's fair. It's time to talk about the 4 of us because that's the most important thing that class happened to us was that it was like Stand By Me, where we all were connected by something, a greater force, and it just this friendship that would be like a flame in our lives. So. I don't know, do you remember first talking to us? Because obviously in the first class, the first day I think we were arranging the tables. Well, that was later. But the first day we all were just naturally sitting down where we wanted to sit. And I sat naturally at the back.
Right.
Well, it was like a long table kind of thing, like a King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, but with rectangular long tables that were set up in that way.
In a square, yeah.
Kind of in a square. And I just naturally sat at the back end. I guess you could say psychologically what that says about me. Like I'm at the end of a table, so I have more importance. I'm looking directly at the teacher, but at the same time I'm in the back. But I'm not. I'm still the center of attention in a way.
Sure.
And Alan, I think, sat next to me.
I think you're right.
And I think one of the first things I asked him was, do you like being you? Again, this is something that you guys have told me. I've forgotten a lot of this. You guys, I looked at Alan and I just blurted out, do you like being you? And I remember Alan telling me that Esley was so afraid for me. He had a look of fear because he thought that Alan was gonna kick my ass for asking him that question.
Yeah, we all thought that you were kind of like taunting him.
I wasn't.
It should be clarified for a little bit of context on that one. It was a class mostly full of like 18, 19, maybe some 20-year-olds.
And
Alan Marshall was coming back to school for the like third time. He'd already been like tried and like dipped his toes in and taken his toes back out.
But that wasn't why I asked the question
at the time.
Yeah, right? But that wasn't. Yeah, but that wasn't why I asked the question.
That's what everyone presumed.
Again, this is a motif in my life. Is that I say what's on my mind, but people take it out of context because there is no context. When I ask a question or say something, it's because it just popped into my brain like Tourette's. It's not because I'm trying to say something or like insinuate anything. Which is probably how you get the Katie Kaczynski seduction thing.
Yeah.
I just say things that I think are all right, and then all of a sudden, I guess I'm seducing a teacher. I ask Alan, just because I was genuinely curious, do you like being you?
Yeah, the rest of us took it as...
You're mocking him.
Other words like, are you proud of being a 26-year-old starting school?
Back in college.
Level 1 filmmaking.
Do you remember what his response was?
No.
I'm sure it was because he didn't talk a lot. I became
very uncomfortable and turned away shortly after witnessing it.
I was very, very comfortable because I didn't notice at all anything around me. So I thought I was asking a genuinely interesting question because it had nothing to do with him being back at school. I was just wanted to know the person. But again, context, everyone else took it as that. And I remember Alan in the first couple of classes, he didn't talk that much. So I'm sure if he must have given a response, but it must have been a very terse, short, curt response. Responses I'm thinking.
Well, I remember him coming into that first class with a pretty negative attitude.
Yeah, he seemed really jaded.
So, because, of course, it's like one of those things that all instructors do. They're like, all right, talk a little bit about yourself and why you're here. And I remember Alan standing up and going on a tirade about how he'd already been through these classes. Or sat and said, I've already been through these classes, but you come back to Columbia 3 years later and they've changed all the base curricula, so you have to start from square one again, and nothing that I did matters. So I guess I'm here to waste some more fucking money.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
And at that moment I liked him too, for the same reason I liked Dale, for being so upfront. I thought, I like this guy. So I liked him from the beginning. I don't know if Alan liked me from the beginning. One day we'll bring him on and we'll discuss this.
Yeah. Special.
But I thought, this guy, I like this guy. This is a guy I can see myself being around. Also, he was bigger than me. And that physically, he was just bigger than me. He was bigger than everyone, except for maybe Alex. And for that reason alone, I just kind of geared towards him. I don't know. He was like
looking for a pack leader,
like a big brother kind of thing, I guess.
Sure.
I guess that really was kind of like something like that. He was someone like a role model to look up to.
A kindred spirit.
More
experience in his belt.
And I could understand why he was jaded after getting to know him for so long. After talking a lot, he would tell me about his first time at Columbia and all the things that happened to him. I thought, Jesus. I won't get into it here because they're his stories.
Yeah.
But his jadedness
is well earned.
But
particularly in context of that school.
I remember. I can't remember the first time Alan and I maybe from the first or second class, because he missed more than a couple. There was some dates he just wouldn't show up. But I remember quite a few times after a certain point it became happen at the end of the class. He and I were both going to the train, so we would just walk together, and so we naturally started just bonding. We would spend more time with each other, and then eventually we started going to Miller's together. And I guess I was the first one to go to Miller's with him. Was I?
Mm-hmm.
And then Tommy and you.
Then Tommy, and then I was the last.
Well, I was
the last.
The way Tommy says it. The way Tommy says is that the first time he went was the first time you went.
He's wrong.
Okay.
He'd been brought once before.
All of you, this is like Rashomon. We all got conflicting tales here. I mean, no one's really sure quite what happened in this class. It's like some trauma we're trying to cover up.
Like it,
which we can talk about that another day.
Yeah, that's for another episode.
But I started hanging out with him more, and I think, I told you why I just naturally liked him from the beginning. I think with him, the way he's described it to me, I've asked him a couple times, maybe like, why did you start
You're in
hanging out with
dangerous
me?
territory here, man.
Again, I don't want to presume.
Right.
But as I understand it, if I were to paraphrase, the way he says it was that he was just so, my enthusiasm and my energy in that class was very, not inspiring, but it was magnetic, I guess. And so he thought, this is someone I could probably force to do projects with me, and he would be all game for it. And I guess that's why we started hanging out, because he thought in me, okay, this is someone who actually wants to do things. I'm going to assume, again, I'm paraphrasing from what he's told me in the past, that's why he started hanging out. I'm sure if he were here, he would have a more descriptive explanation.
Uh-huh.
But with Tommy, first of all, I have to say that you were the last member of the group to
I was.
Because while we were in class, you didn't really talk. Is that fair to say? Fairly safe to say?
Yeah, I'd say soft-spoken.
You were soft-spoken. It's not that you were quiet or shy. It's just that it didn't seem like you had a lot to say.
It's true.
You kept
For
yourself.
a lot of it,
Because you hadn't seen any of these movies?
yeah,
or
first exposure to a lot of the stuff.
But you have more film experience than all of us.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into that?
Filmmaking experience.
Do you want to get into that? Maybe get into why you wanted to go to film school in the first
Not
place.
particularly film viewing experience.
Why did you want to get into film in the first place?
I don't have a really good answer for that, honestly.
Well, I guess a better question would be, when did you start filming things?
That is a good question, I suppose. So my mother has always been like a writer.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that about.
Yeah. She's a playwright and screenwriter. You didn't know that?
I didn't know this.
Yeah. Her accomplishments diminish anything I've done. But yeah, at one point she was hired to write a pilot, like a spec pilot for a PBS show about sign language time travelers.
All right. This is interesting.
And as a result, I got hired. Well, not hired. I got allowed to come on set one day, and then the second day I was allowed to come on set and help wind and unwind the cable behind the camera guy as he moved backward and forward.
Yeah.
Which, over the course of like the next, I guess, 4 or 5 years, led into a really awesome mentorship with this, video production professional, Chris Tribble, who eventually started up actually like a youth training program for like broadcast media and filmmaking for youth, teaching you to create media that matters. So yeah, I got involved with that, which I'd say was.
And how young were you when that happened?
So when I was allowed to wind and unwind the cable, I was 11.
Wow.
And then by the time I was 14, he was paying me under the table.
And so by the time you went to Columbia, you already had, 8 years of experience? Mm-hmm. Which explains why you got a job.
Made a big difference. Yeah, which was, such a
while you were in college.
Being able to get, work doing production whilst also being in school.
So I guess that really is the moral of the story is that all you really need in life is connections.
Mentorship is huge, I think.
I've never had a mentor.
See,
I still don't have one.
I think that's the problem with, every profession, really, is that the apprenticeship model has kind of gone out the window.
Because there's no vocational schools for something like this, and especially something like this is like a creative art, quote unquote.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have schools where you can just you can learn being a blacksmith.
Right, exactly. It's not an easy or effective way to learn stuff like this in a classroom in general, as we know all too well. All 4 of us.
Donald Pleasance having to deal with
some glass shattering.
Well, because Mike Myers has escaped. Yeah. Anyway, forget the movie.
That's what we're watching to talk about. That's background noise.
We just heard the glass shatter, and I saw what was going on. Anyway, so mentorship
is I think the essential route for learning trades like filmmaking.
And I think all of you have. Alan, he had a mentor, but not for film. He had a mentor for
kind of philosophy.
Well, he had a mentor. I remember he's talked to me about him too, who taught him how to play. I forget if it was the violin specifically, one of the string instruments. Yeah, and again, he can talk about him some other time. But he had a mentor in him. Mm-hmm. He taught him a lot. Tommy had Dale, as far as I'm concerned, because he had him in a lot of classes, so he was a mentor. I have not had a mentor at all, and also so going back to me, because it's all about me.
Well, yeah, that's what we're here to talk about.
The ego, really. So you started essentially when you were 11.
Yes.
That's when your film career,
learned the first things at 11, yeah.
I did not get into film until maybe the last year of high school.
Oh, really? I didn't realize you were that late.
Well, I've been watching...
Sparker.
Look, there are absolutely in any way no creative people in my family. Everyone in my family come from a long line of doctors and...
Educators.
Not educators. My dad is the only teacher.
Oh, is he really?
He's the only teacher. But a long line of, let's say, private entrepreneurs or, like I said, doctors. There's a few doctors in my family. Because that's one of the... In Cuba, that's really one of the only things, especially after the Castro regime really picked... After they were installed, or they installed themselves, I should say.
Yes, after they claimed power.
After the coup, and they got control of the island, afterwards, that was really one of the only things that you could really do and actually have a good career in Cuba was, like, you could go to the ballet, but that would be, like, you would have to be a dancer from a young age and really want to be a dancer. Or you could be a doctor, because they had a big institution for that. And my dad didn't want to do that, but my father's life story is a whole nother... We could do fucking multiple podcasts on his life story. Holy crap, he's done a lot. But basically, the long story short, there are no creative people in my family in any way. No poets, no writers, nothing. Although, the region where my family is from in Cuba, it was the region of poets.
Oh, really?
That's where all the poets lived there, specifically.
Intriguing.
No poets in my family, though. So that's fucking... that doesn't do me any good. But I've been watching movies my whole life. Because that's one thing. All the men in my family, specifically on my father's side, love watching movies. My dad would tell me how my grandfather, his dad, could just could sit down and watch 3 or 4 movies in a row and not get up. And I'm the same. Mm-hmm. I'm the same way. So I guess that's where that comes from. It's just a lineage of that, of movie watching. And if you were to ask certain people, like Tarantino, that's really all you need. It's just if you watch movies, then you can make movies.
Right.
But I never had any kind of... It wasn't like Spielberg where he got an 8mm when he was a kid.
Right, no formality training.
It wasn't like you where you had some kind of connection, you could say, and then started an apprenticeship early on. No, for me, for most of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Most of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And then there was a certain point, my counselor said, well, look, you got to pick something. You got to start thinking about your future. You got to pick colleges. And I thought, well, the only time I ever thought practically about anything, I thought, well, if I'm going to go to college and waste all this money, I might as well be studying something that I genuinely think I could do. So I made a list of all the things I could ever imagine wanting to do. Just all the pipe dreams, let's say.
Right, and anything.
All the things I want to do. And then I took that list and I said, okay, let's make a smaller version of all the things I think I could actually do. Like I think I actually have any ability or...
Yes, any modicum of talent.
Any modicum of talent. And that list got much shorter. Let me tell you. What started off as a list of a good 20 things I'd like to do ended up really... Not even 5.
I have to ask, was pro wrestling on the original list? And did it make did it make it to the short list?
Yes, but then I thought I had to eliminate that because I thought, well, I can't go to college for that. So I could go to a school. There's schools for that.
You could train for it.
But I can't get that as an apprenticeship. That's what that is. Maybe I should have done that.
Get taken on someone's wing. There's still time.
There's still time.
You can have third and
wins. Are you kidding? There's some directors, some pro wrestlers who didn't start their careers until their late 30s. So
you got time.
I got time, but anyway, the point is that basically I thought, in an ironic sort of way, the most practical thing for me to study would be filmmaking.
That is it's uncommon to hear.
It is uncommon to hear, but that
was made from a practical...
That was a practical decision, because I thought if I do any of the other things, I won't like doing them, and I won't be good at them because of it. And so I'll just be wasting my life. I might as well try to do something that I like, or that I could see myself doing, potentially. And at that time, I also was in a film club. And that was the first year I was in the film club.
I didn't know that.
Oh, there was
in high school you were in a film
club? In high school for senior year only. Again, I think the film club was there the whole time, but I just found out about it in senior year.
So what did the film club entail?
The film club entailed, in theory, having a small group of people to help make projects with each other, but that never happened.
Make things.
We were trying to make
watching
things.
Stuff and then...
But there were times when we would get together, and I actually wrote a script. I remember actually writing my first script ever. The first script I ever wrote was for film club.
Was it the janitor script?
No, that was the second script I ever wrote. The first script I ever wrote was this really weird... I guess it's a good way of explaining my taste. I wonder if I still have it. I don't think I do, but the first script I ever wrote was a script... It was essentially about... It was almost like the comedy was like Three Stooges or Buster Keaton. It was like a comedy short musical thing about a boy who's trying to get a girl to notice him. That's all it was. But it was like the main character was essentially like a Charlie Chaplin or a Buster Keaton kind of character because I had this whole bit. I remember writing this and thinking this is so funny. I had this whole bit because at our school there would be a metal detector in the morning when you'd walk in. And so I thought, wouldn't it be funny if you like almost like you'd see at an airport where someone, okay, so you have to go to the metal, you go through it and it goes off, and then okay, so take off your backpack and go through it again. It keeps going. Like there's nothing on. Like essentially, it just keeps escalating to the point where he just starts going through it like really quickly and breaks the machine. It was like a dance. And I remember when we read the script in film club, one of the guys was actually doing it, and then the security guard walks into the room as he's doing it and saying, "Hey guys, it's time to go."
Beautiful.
It was the funniest thing. I wish we'd recorded that because it was the funniest thing. And I thought, oh, it actually works. In theory, at least, it could work.
It is funny.
That was the only moment where I thought, oh, I could potentially write something. But then I remember, so the whole script, there was a nice little dance number where this guy, he's imagining dancing with this girl. And it's almost like a Fred Astaire movie. And I don't even think I'd seen a Fred Astaire
really
movie.
Charming.
I don't even. It's amazing how old-fashioned my taste is.
Yeah.
Organically, because again, I wasn't.
That's something you kind of came to in later years.
When I wrote it, I wasn't thinking of inspirations. I don't even think I'd seen a Fred Astaire musical by that point.
Or Buster Keaton.
Or Buster Keaton. I'd seen Chaplin movies and The Three Stooges, but I hadn't seen any of that stuff. But it was amazing how I just naturally, without thinking about it, I wasn't trying to homage or take pastiche or anything. I just naturally like things that were made in the 20s and 30s.
Well, that kind of physical comedy, that comes through even in, Jackie Chan movies.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But again, I wasn't thinking consciously about any of this. This is stuff I realize now, looking back on it. But the first script I ever wrote was something where it was like the Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers musical or like a Buster Keaton film where he's trying to get the girl. And it was like 15 pages. I wrote 15 or 20 pages, something like that.
Something like that.
And so he read the whole thing. I remember one of the guys at the end of it said, "Yeah, Fabrizio, this is kind of creepy."
Oh, that's so true.
I thought, oh, that's not. No,
That rings
that's a shame.
extremely true.
That's a shame. Well, because in the end, he doesn't get the girl, but he does get her to notice him. That's how it ends.
But in a bad way?
No. What happens is, again, I can't believe thinking about this. I almost ripped off a Buster Keaton movie because there's a scene where this kid, there was a football. I don't forget exactly how I set it up, but basically he was trying to get this girl to notice him, and she went to a football game. I forget if she was a cheerleader or if she had a boyfriend.
Okay.
But somehow the character, one of the football players, has to get out, and so he takes his uniform and goes on the field. And I'm looking back and I think, God, this is like a college. This is like a Buster Keaton movie. How did I not see these movies? And I organically did this stuff. And it ends with her. It ends with a scene, like a moment between them, where she doesn't fall in love with him, but it's the moment where where like he feels he accomplished something because she notices me now, and it's not it's like a charming little. It was intended to be a charming little moment.
All right, so what part of it
was creepy?
Was pulled out as creepy?
I guess just the general tone of it. I thought it was supposed to be cute, like, oh, this is a boy who's not just trying to get this girl to notice him, but he's obsessed with her. I guess that part of it came off as creepy.
Part.
It was, but I didn't make it seem like he was stalking her or anything. It wasn't anything like that. It was just that he admires her from afar.
Okay.
Like that. I thought that was like a normal thing because I'd seen that in movies all the time. Now in the 21st century, I guess now that scene is creepy.
We'd have to film it.
We'd have to film it to see how it comes out, but we never got to film that. Part of me still wishes I did, because I feel like even if it was a failure, at least I could have started with something. The first time I ever picked up a camera was in Columbia.
Oh, really? I didn't know
that.
The
first time I ever picked up a camera. So that was the first script I read. I wrote 2 scripts senior year that were shorts. And I wanted to actually do... I guess it's not true. Technically speaking, the first thing I ever shot was in freshman year for like a music video. In art class, one of the things we had to do for like our final was to shoot a music video. And so I had a camera, but like a really like a little digital.
Yeah, sure, little cool pics.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. And so I shot that. I shot a lightsaber duel. Was the first thing I ever shot. Of course, because I was obsessed.
Who doesn't? Yeah.
Because I'm a nerd. I'm a geek who's obsessed with Star Wars. I'm in high school.
Still working.
I took
with
Duel of
friends
the
on
and I remember the plot. There was a plot of the music video. It was a music video. It was a fight scene basically. I choreographed a fight scene, which was not well choreographed. Obviously, if you were to see it, but it was the first time I ever actually used any. I learned how to. I didn't learn anything, but I started filming with shooting anything, period. I started choreographing. I had a plot. The basic plot was that they were fighting over a bag of Cheetos, and that's why it's a start. And then at the end, they all essentially, the fight is so elongated and so over the top that they all essentially just, from exhaustion, they collapse. and then a random person just
I was gonna
walks
say, who
by.
gets the Cheetos
A random
at the
person
end?
walks by
Yeah.
me and it just gets the Cheetos and takes it, and that's how it ends.
It's a very nihilistic view.
Amazing. But I that was the first time I ever shot anything. I started using After Effects. It wasn't that program specifically, but I forget what it was. But there was some program I started using where you would install, because to do the lightsaber effects, I wanted to actually do lightsaber. The rotoscope it would do it every 10th of a second.
Okay.
So I would have to manually insert the lightsaber effects every 10th of a second, and for days I stayed up doing this. I didn't sleep for like 3 or 4 days.
Here's the amazing part about that: the
What?
technology has not improved,
And then you still have
how
to.
you have to do it.
But I actually was so obsessed with it. I was so passionate about it that I didn't mind not sleeping for 4 days.
That's impressive.
And there is no final version of this video available, obviously.
For viewers' benefit, that is also a consistent theme in Fabricio's body of work.
Yeah,
I think you have 3
unfinished
films.
I have 3 finished, unfinished films that will never be shown because they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, it's sad.
I can officially put on my
We know
Wikipedia
for sure
page.
that one of them is genius.
I can. Do we?
The one you and I did is pretty brilliant.
The coffee and cigarettes?
Yeah, I guess. Is that what we called it?
We call it dishes and cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is. I don't know if I still have any of that footage.
quietly
Someone has some of that footage. Like I think Alan still has it. So in theory, we could still edit it.
As long as someone's got it.
But yeah, I have. It's almost like I'm D.W. Griffith. You could put on my Wikipedia page lost film.
Uh-huh.
Lost film.
Yeah, that's how we should do it.
That's basically it. And so yeah, I thought, okay, so I guess I'll start applying to film schools. Columbia was one of them. I thought, I don't want to really leave the city like most people. I don't want to leave my house like most people. But I also don't want to live in a dorm, because I thought, if I'm going to be here, I might as well live in a dorm. And at the end of the day, Columbia was the best choice. It met all these criteria. And so I went to Columbia. And that's how I started. And believe me, I'm really passionate about it. I want to keep doing it. But I started really late. I don't have enough experience in any of it. Columbia didn't really help in that regard. And I don't have a mentor. I never had a mentor in any way. The closest thing I had to a mentorship was in IT.
Right.
And that's another story for another time. I could spend a whole other episode talking about my time in IT, which was, looking back on it, the best part of college was IT media services, which might be a sad thing to say, but I'd never had more fun than when I was working at IT, and I had to answer people's problems over the phone. It's like, oh, this computer isn't working, and did you try this and this? And
I tried turning it on.
Yeah, that was always the first thing. Try turning it off and on again. It's like a joke in IT. That's like a running gag. In the show, too, the IT crowd.
Right.
And it's very true that almost always can solve the problem.
South Park, when the internet breaks and they just unplug and plug back in.
Yeah.
It's fixed. Yeah,
it's true. But over the course of my time at IT, I encountered so many problems and so many different kinds of things. But I really genuinely enjoyed doing it. It's a weird thing to look back on it now and say, I should have worked more at IT. And again, I've made this joke before. If I ever were to go back to school,
it would be for IT.
It would just be so I could work at IT Media Services.
Back to Columbia?
Back to Columbia. For whatever reason, I would just do it to go to IT. And now, but that's, like I said, that's a whole other story for another time.
Right.
My adventures at IT, because there's quite a few things that are just, looking back, and I think that's unbelievable. But back to how we met. So yeah, I started hanging out with Alan. We would go to Miller's, which is this diner, not a diner, more like a restaurant, or a pub. It's a pub.
Gastropub.
A gastropub, which sounds a bit too obnoxious for Miller's.
It's an Irish pub, is what it is.
But it's a restaurant. It's a restaurant and a pub at the same time. Mm. Okay, so Miller's, I would go to Miller's with him because he loved going to Miller's. Then Tommy started going, and then you started going. And then basically that was the 4 of us. And we started doing things, started hanging out outside of class. We would go to Alan. Specifically, I guess, who was the first one of us? I think you were the first one of us to go to his apartment, though, weren't you?
No.
Was it? It had to have been me, then.
It was the summer before I saw the inside of Alan's apartment.
Okay, so I guess I was the first. I must have been
the first.
I was the first person out of all of us to go to Alan's apartment, and we would hang out there incessantly. And then eventually you would go too, and Tommy would go. But the dream did not last for long.
No.
A, because we never had a class together. Again, the 4 of us in another class. Because, Alan dropped out, I think, that same semester.
As soon as the first semester was done. He was
and then you also graduated a year ahead of the rest of us because
year and a half.
Right, because you had credits going back to... So there was never any chance of all of us getting back together
into a class.
It just wasn't going to happen. But we did hang out outside of class extensively. But that was the thing. Another problem with my time at Columbia after that one semester was that was such a good experience. It never matched it.
You never had a creative group in like a class again.
MIP 2
actually create work
was the single worst class I had at Columbia.
Yeah, I remember some dark days from you in MIP 2.
Well, because MIP 2, it was amazing how MIP 1, our time together was so, everyone was, for the most part, our group specifically was, I think, the perfect group. Because everyone brought something to the class, and all of them had their own things going for them, but they all seemed genuinely enthusiastic for the most part.
Except Henry.
Except for Henry, who was, which one was Henry?
Part of the duo. Remember?
Oh, yeah, we're Team Rocket. I forgot for a second.
Team Rocket.
Okay, do you want to... Well, okay, before I get to that...
Yeah, we'll postpone Team Rocket.
Before I get to that, yeah, so it was just a shame. And then getting to MIP 2, all the people there, from the moment I was in that class, I thought, I don't like being here.
Yeah, it's not great.
I took MIP 2 twice.
Oh, did you really? I didn't know that.
Because I dropped it the first time, I thought, this is bullshit. And the second time, I got through it without doing any of the work. I've told you that, how I got through. I did MIP 2 the second time. I didn't turn in any of the assignments, but I got a passing grade.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that after I,
I remember you and Tommy
last minute helped you make both of your 2 films you were supposed to be working on whole semester, and you
then
never showed.
I never turned them in. Again, the motif of I have masterpieces that I've never
shown.
Wow, I really got to start showing something, because otherwise this is going to be a bad trend throughout my life.
Yeah,
we're solving problems here on this podcast.
Step 1. Well, you got to show it still. There's no guarantee.
Oh, you're right. There's no guarantee that I'll even show this podcast. Oh my God, you're right. So this definitely has to go online.
The first thing
this might be the first thing that I've ever actually put on the internet. Good Lord, that's sad to think.
Yeah, it's okay. I've only got one thing genuine out there.
But yeah, so that's. In a nutshell, it's very long-winded how we talked about this, and we've spent more than an hour.
The thing is that it opens up conversation, which opens up other conversation.
Tangents. It's very tangential. So if you want to talk about Team Rocket,
do
you want to talk about any of them others? Okay, so there's only 2 people we gotta bring up. We talked about how Esley is just an overall really cool guy.
Yeah. We
could talk about some of our shorts we did, which none of them are really that good.
No.
The one thing I will say about
student films.
Yeah, but there was one thing about ours that I liked. There was one I did. I forget. It wasn't the final one. Or was it? No, it was definitely not the final one. The final one I did with you. It was you, me, Esley and Solomon. And we can talk about that. We don't have enough time.
We'll skip that one for now.
So we'll have to talk about that some other time. The continuing adventures of our time at Columbia.
That's right.
But the one thing I can say about our other short film is that I remember that is yet another thing that we did that when we showed it to Dale, he thought it was creepy.
Oh, and yes, I forgot about yours.
And I was in it as a guy who's
actually really talented as an actor in it.
This is something that I've been told 2 or 3 times by you, Tommy, and Alan, and I think 1 or 2 other people who have told me that I actually have potential as an actor.
You've got really good, I don't want to give you a big head because I know this is going to give you...
Oh, trust me, I humiliate myself on a daily basis. There's no way. My ego could be bigger or smaller at any given moment.
You've got a somewhat analogous... sleazy charisma to...
oh, that's good.
Oh, come on.
To what?
I always forget his name, and he's so huge.
Well, what is he in? Just name a movie.
Birdman.
Oh, Michael Keaton?
Michael Keaton.
You think I'm like Michael Keaton?
You have somewhat analogous, sleazy
So
charisma.
kind of like Michael Keaton in Night Shift.
Kind of like Michael Keaton, or I was thinking of The Founder when I was saying it.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
It's good.
I actually want to.
It's got sleazy charisma.
Yeah, well, in Night Shift, he plays a guy he's friends with Henry Winkler, and they both they're like morticians at the Night Shift. And then eventually they both get the idea, well, really, Michael Keaton gets the idea because Henry Winkler's like a straight guy. He doesn't want to do anything crazy. But Michael Keaton says, we should turn this into a brothel. And eventually it happens.
All right.
It's like Michael Keaton's charming but sleazy.
Yeah, that gets it. That gets
so guys, that's actually the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my acting.
There you go.
Is that, in fact, to continue the curse of me, nothing I ever been in gets put out, I did something with Tommy. I did a show with him that has never been, I don't think we've never seen.
I've seen it. I edited it.
Did you see the final finish thing?
Mm-hmm.
Did he actually,
the final edit.
But what did he do? Did he actually...
He screened it in his class and never did anything.
So that to me just counts because I still want to do the DVD.
It was really poorly executed, to be fair. It's a great idea, but it was poorly.
I know that Tommy, when he's screening it in his class, there was some other kid there, I forget his name, who. So that's Fabricio. And then Tommy said, yeah. And he said, yeah, he's perfect for this.
He is perfect for this.
Because I was playing a con man in that,
Yeah.
too. I guess I should play con man, is what you're...
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll do that. It could be
but back to the short you did for.
So yeah, it was a motif. Like another thing I did that was creepy, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't my idea to do the short, like it wasn't my basic idea. But basically, in the short, I play a guy who steals people's things. Like I play a camera thief. I specifically like to steal people's cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point, I'm luring a guy in a park by dropping this money on the ground. He'll just keep following the money. Which
unfortunately is not the creepy part.
The creepy part is that I take off my leather jacket and I hold it in a certain way, and then when he comes around the corner, I wrap it around him and make him and suffocate him.
Yes,
and he passes out, and then I start.
Then you undress him.
I undress. Oh, you're right. I do undress him
and take a picture next to his dsuffocated suffocated
and
body,
then leave it
and drop it like a little Polaroid or something like on him.
I remember something I did. When we were shooting it, something I just naturally did is that after I like put it over his face and I try to suffocate him, I also start lulling him to sleep, like going shh.
Yes, which was creepy.
So I guess I'm a naturally, again, this goes back to the sleazy charm thing. There's something about me that's off.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's good. I think we've now narrowed.
Can't take your eyes away from it.
We've now narrowed down what kind of movies I should do.
What roles you can play. Yeah.
Clearly, but so Team Rocket. In the short time we have.
Somehow Alan made like a 25-minute cut of that version of your film.
Yeah.
Which was astonishing.
I still haven't seen that version.
I haven't seen that version either.
I never saw either version, to be honest.
Really
No, I saw Dylan's version, because he's the one that we showed to class. And in that version, right when I'm about to get him with my jacket, it cuts, and you don't see it. You just hear it. So that one's not nearly as creepy. That one's much more amusing. Which just goes to show, right? Editing.
It's important.
I prefer our version. I prefer the version where I'm a creepy dude. I remember because I was doing a method thing. I don't know. Again, I wasn't doing that intentionally, but I thought, well, in this scene I got to be really like panting because I've been running a lot. So I thought I'll just run around the park so that when we shoot it, I'll actually be
genuinely panting.
And I did. And I was still like breathing heavily when we were shooting. Like, it was great.
Comes across as very creepy.
Yep.
All right,
so Team Rocket. Team Rocket. The two kids in that class. If there are two kids in that class, I regret not knowing more. It is Henry and Emily. No, here's why. Team Rocket were these two kids, Emily and Henry.
Yes.
Girl and boy. And I think they both knew each other.
Referred to themselves as twins, although I think they were not blood related.
They were not blood related, but they were close friends back from Houston. They both were from Texas.
Yes, both from Texas.
I think Houston.
Knew each other before.
They knew each other before college, and they both went to Columbia. And I would see them every so often. I would see them after that class, not in another class, but I would just see them. I knew for a fact that for most of that time at Columbia, Emily worked at the Apple store for Columbia, and I would just see her there. Because I would work at IT, so I would be going to all the buildings, and every now and then I'd see her, I'd wave at her, she'd wave back. Henry would be there sometimes. I don't know if he worked there, but they were just hanging out. But, so yeah, she had green hair. She just had really, like, a neon green hair. Henry had it looked normal, but it was like a red.
Yeah.
Like a pretty...
not dyed red.
But not dyed red, but like a red, but it was like a pretty saturated, like it looked natural, but it looked like intense. So I thought, looking at those two together, with her green hair and his red hair, it looked like Team Rocket from Pokemon. I think
that's where that comes from?
Alan was the first one to call him that.
It's taken forever for me. That's literally the first time I understood why
Alan
Team
was...
Rocket.
Really?
Yes, literally.
You didn't just think naturally, what is Team Rocket? Oh.
I did not.
Yeah, no, that's what Alan was the first one to call him that.
I've always wondered.
We've never called them that to their faces. And again, I don't think it was insulting. But again...
I don't think it is.
But again, I think differently.
Henry's a bit of a character.
Well, yeah, so... We could talk a lot about what's happened to them since, but I don't want to get into that simply because I don't think. Oh, I know a little. I know quite a bit about, not a lot, but I follow Emily on Instagram.
Follow her on Instagram.
And I've seen Henry every now and then through Instagram, and it's like, oh, there have been some changes. Trust me, we can talk about it if you want. I don't like to gossip.
We'll talk about it off the air.
Yeah, because it's not really my business to air this shit.
Yeah.
And again, I wouldn't mean anything to insult anyone.
Of course.
But let's just talk while we were in class.
Yeah.
They were very close together. They were really close friends. They would always sit next to each other. That just happened organically, obviously. They knew each other. But I always thought, just looking at them, the reason why I wanted to know them, I wanted to get to know them more, is just because every time I would look at them, I would say, "There's a story here. There's a story as to how these two found each other and their background." And I wish I knew that story. I really do to this day. And also, I genuinely felt like neither of them were bad. They both seemed like nice people. Maybe a little bit introverted. No, you're saying no, they weren't
Henry
nice?
was a dick.
Was he?
And a half.
Well, I never worked with him. Did you?
I didn't work with him either.
So when you say a dick, based off of what? Because in the class, maybe I didn't notice. I don't remember him saying anything in the class.
He was very vehement about which things he liked and which things he
Well,
didn't.
I remember him saying that he didn't like films that are with subtitles or black and white.
Yes, and then he made the 2 films that he made in the class. One of them was subtitled, and one of them
Was black
and white.
Really?
Yes.
I remember one of the things he worked on was
bitching about it consistently. I also remember
because he didn't like that he was doing it.
Yeah, no, he would bitch about, like, in other movies, but then he'd be like, "Oh yeah, we made this black and white film."
I don't remember that.
And then the second time, like, "Oh yeah, I made this subtitled film."
Why was it subtitled?
Because she was mute.
Oh,
was mute.
So it was like sign language or like what they were thinking?
What they were thinking, yeah.
Oh.
Because they didn't talk. It was a very cute film. And I liked the second one a lot.
Was that the one with the paper airplanes?
Yes.
That one
really
I thought
good.
that was the one I thought this one was the most professional of everyone.
It was really good.
Yeah, I guess
but
you're right.
Very irritating.
Oh yeah.
Also, I remember.
Well, I also just
the hand thing that I did as like an effect one time on.
An hour thing?
No, on the thing that like Alec, Aaron, and I did.
Was that which one was that?
It's like it was bad. It was like a dude's like hiding. He gets getting chased and he like hides under like against a wall, and then he's like invisible all of a sudden.
Really, I don't remember this one at
Ferris
all.
like rubs his eyes and.
I kind of remember that.
Yes,
because
so that was the
Ferris acting. I remember.
And then
I'll never forget Ferris doing anything.
We had to do an effect for like the point of view, but we couldn't go back and shoot it.
And so
I green screened my hand rubbing like it was rubbing the camera lens. And I remember it actually went over pretty well with everyone except Henry, who didn't shut up about it all class and for the next like 2 classes, talking about how fucking garbage.
I don't remember that.
Hand was.
I don't remember this.
I remember you sticking up for it actually.
Did I stick up for it?
Yes, you did. I did not know that was green screen.
Even though I was
pretty freaking good.
Even though this is my favorite class, I clearly pressed most of it because I don't remember any of it.
Dale said the same thing, but yeah, Henry would not let it go.
Yeah, well, I'm sure
last day of
that
class
sounds like something I would say. I can imagine myself saying, "Well, I'm not a really technical know-how person, but I didn't notice it. I didn't realize that this was a green screen until you just told me." Like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's exactly how that went. So anyway, perhaps I have some just personal bitterness.
Well, what about Emily? You don't.
I think well of Emily.
Well, because here's the thing. Like I said, I didn't really interact with either of them, but I wanted to.
Yeah.
But there was no way that organically could have happened.
No.
Because they were their own thing, and they would always go. I always tried to try and like reel them in, like after class or during class, to try and get them into just trying. Okay, what are they into? What can I say or do to these two to get them involved with me? I don't know. There was something about them I just found fascinating. And, an obvious reason one could say is that Emily was the only girl in the class. And so she just stuck out like a sore thumb. I know in the other class there were more girls. There were more women in the...
More women, yeah.
But in ours, she was the only one.
Mm-hmm.
So the testosterone was through the fucking roof. Too much.
Absolutely.
But I just thought, she stands out, and she seems interesting, and she was, like I said, she was nice. She never said, well, not like Henry, who apparently you had a bad experience with, but she never said anything irritating or anything passive-aggressive or anything like that. I don't remember her saying a lot, to be honest.
And when she did speak up, it was usually pretty insightful.
Yeah.
Like Yaddle on the Jedi Council.
What?
Oh. Yaddle.
I thought you were saying she talked about Yaddle.
No, just she had a Yaddle.
You're referencing a character who never said a thing in The Phantom Menace.
Yes,
who was there for one scene.
If you've read Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, the visual guide.
Yeah, the visual guide.
You'll learn that Yaddle does not speak often, but when she does, she imparts great wisdom.
We are so lame. Because I know what you're talking about.
You know the exact quote. I can see it.
Yeah. I think at one point I knew all the names of all the council members.
Yeah.
Just all the weird aliens. I just knew their names. Oh God, I know Plo Koon.
Plo Koon, good one.
He was the one who died in the TIE fighter, not the TIE fighter, but
with the mask.
Yeah. Jesus Christ! Let's not talk about this right now. Let's not talk.
Mundi.
Oh, Keanu with the cone head.
The incredible 2-brained head.
The cone head, yeah. I can't forget him.
Can't.
Anyway, let's not talk about that right now. That's a story for another time. But yeah, so Team Rocket, and I don't know. I always liked. They were just weird. It's one of those things where you almost had to be there, kind of thing. Again, I never liked his comment. There are a lot of people who are like that who say I can't watch movies with subtitles or black and white. Well, that's like 90% of all the good movies that have been made. They've either been made at a time where there was black and white, or they've been made in a country that does not speak English.
Right.
So that's most
ruling out like 80% of all films made.
And then, but yeah, so even there might be films that are in color. There might be in color, but they're speaking a different language, or there are films that are in black and white, but they're speaking English, but they're in black and white
because that's what they have.
So there's a lot of movies that you are not seeing. Then
Exactly.
That sounds like you don't see like even classic Hollywood movies like Casablanca.
Mm-hmm.
Has he ever seen Casablanca? I can only imagine that when he says I don't like movies that with these qualities, he must have seen at least one at some point.
You would hope so if you claim to have a distaste for them. Yeah.
Maybe it was a bad one. Maybe he just saw a really bad black and white movie.
And one really bad movie with subtitles.
Yeah, so maybe like he probably saw some trashy Swedish porn film from the 70s.
That'll turn you off, yeah.
Yeah, and then he probably saw like some B-movie UFO flying saucer film from the 50s. That was in black and white, and they thought, this is all garbage. This must be what they're all like.
This must be what these are. But then he made one of each.
He made a porno?
Yeah.
Oh.
See that one?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, that was MIP 2.
Oh, okay, that's why. MIP 2, which was hell on earth. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, Team Rocket.
Team Rocket, Ferris. We have to talk about Ferris, who was the most interesting person we have ever met.
We expect great.
I knew Ferris going all the way back to Open House, or the kind of I don't know if it was Open House, but you know the thing I'm talking about,
where they had us all come down to the production center.
Yeah.
And do trivia.
Yeah. It's amazing how there's not that much violence in this movie.
Mm-mm.
People die, but it's not.
Right.
But it's still really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not. It's not like torture porn like Saw or anything.
This
like
is
that.
probably one of my favorite horror films, by the way.
No doubt.
This is top 5 for me.
Mm-hmm. And
I mean, it's
interestingly, I think one of our Alex, I think he either made or he pitched at one point a short film that kind of used the same technique, which I feel like a lot of
a POV
film
thing?
students do with the POV creeping up, which really does not work really well
anymore.
Often.
It works here,
but yeah, I don't know if it's because of the novelty or because of the I guess kind of campiness of the whole thing.
This movie and Texas Chainsaw Massacre really set off the whole slasher craze of the 80s.
Very effective.
And they're the two of the best. The jump scares in this movie, this was at a time when jump scares weren't a thing, and so they're actually scary and different in this movie. When you think about it in context, you think, wow, this movie must have been it was a big hit.
Puritanical themes.
This is a great movie.
Hugh Hefner loved this movie.
Back to Ferris, who actually is a big fan of horror.
Yeah, that's right.
Ferris loves horror movies, and the first time I ever saw him was in Open House. And we naturally started talking to me, and he said we should make a horror film. But he said it in that Ferris voice of his, which I'm going to try and do. We should make a horror film together, Fabricio. It's something like that.
Something like that.
It's kind of like a monotone, but it's like a monotone. It's like if you were to do a cartoon. And you had to make a character really interesting and enthusiastic through their voice, but it has to be monotone at the same time.
Uh-huh.
It's like if SpongeBob just had one note in his voice, it would be like Ferris.
Yeah.
He was enthusiastic a lot, but he had this voice that would not go up or down an octave. Mm-hmm. It would not go up or down in any way. It was just flat.
Expressiveness, yeah.
And he had a face that was very expressionless. He didn't show emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why oftentimes people just say things, and if anyone else is them, they wouldn't be funny. But the way he said it, it was like a deadpan.
Yeah, like a Nick Offerman.
Like a Bill Murray or something like that. He's like a Bill Murray, but he's not nearly as sarcastic or anything. But he was very enthusiastic. But I remember one time he tried to pitch to the class, I want to do a superhero film about two people who want to be superheroes. And they start talking about maybe we should be superheroes, and then we all started thinking, oh yeah, this could be like a comedy, and like there could be it'll be serious, and they're gonna be superheroes. Okay, what are you talking about, Ferris? I mean, you're gonna make this like Kick-Ass? What are you talking about here? And then he wrote the script.
Oh, I didn't know he wrote it.
And this is one of the moments where I thought Henry shined, because we read the script in class, and Henry did all the voices.
I don't remember that.
Oh, I remember this.
Clearly, I blocked out all good memories associated with Henry.
Well, he wrote the script in the first draft. All it was like not even 10 pages of these two people who were talking about how do we do it? How do we be superheroes? And then the way Henry does it, he plays it for laughs. He plays it for the joke because it's funny.
Yeah, well,
and everyone just couldn't stop laughing. And we weren't making fun of his screenplay. We just thought it's funny the way that Henry was doing it.
We thought you'd written a comedic
Ferris
take.
was not having any of it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember throughout that whole class, I kept saying, "I want Henry to read these scripts. I want him to read all of them." He was wonderful. Henry was wonderful in that class. That clearly you won't remember, but he was hilarious. And Ferris was not
quite like a bitchy guy to tear down a funny script.
Would it be safe to say that Henry was a little bit effeminate?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that's
fair. I don't think I'm not trying to be mean.
We won't make any presumptions about sexuality either, but
no.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I don't mean it in, again, not in any way offensive. It's just that he came off as effeminate.
Mm-hmm.
Not like in a wussy kind of way, like like the kind of kid you'd see like in a playground and you just naturally bully. Okay. I wonder if he was ever bullied. Now that I'm saying this out loud,
now we're getting.
I don't think Henry could ever be bullied. He's sass. You know what I mean? He's like he wouldn't. Bitchy. I don't think he would put up with it.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's ever been bullied. But he came off as a little effeminate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ferris was a person who came off as asexual. Although we know for a fact that he wasn't. Why? Because he asked. What did he ask our friend Alan one time? Do you remember this?
No.
I remember Alan telling me this, and I almost feel bad saying it. I almost feel like I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it.
All right, but here we are.
I remember one time, this was years ago, and I'm sure Ferris is in a much better place now.
I can hope so.
We try to keep up with him, but it's really hard because it's been so long, and now Mike Myers is going to go after Jamie Lee Curtis in the final 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, that's it.
Finally.
Conclusion.
Finally, he's been killing. Oh, here's let me just. Yeah, look at that. That's a good jump scare right there.
Very good jump scare.
There's this one moment in this movie that once we get to, I gotta point it out, where you just see Mike Myers. Oh, there we go, another one. That's good, so good.
Good set pieces.
These are good set pieces. It's not like the average horror film like that we have nowadays, where just like the music stops, it builds up and then it stops, and then.
Well, this is another thing too that I think is really good about this.
Here it comes. Here comes Mike Myers. We're going to see him soon. We're definitely going to see his mask, and then we're all going to freak out because it's scary as shit. Oh, there it is!
There it is.
Oh, and
the knife close up.
And he missed somehow.
Another great POV shot.
This is Hitchcockian. This movie is Hitchcockian.
And one thing that this does brilliantly that I think...
We were talking about Ferris, but...
Yeah, we'll get back to it.
This is so intense,
We'll get back to it. God, one of the things that annoys people so much about horror movies is there's the tantalizing little door, and they're like, oh, I wonder what would be down there, and everyone, it's such a trope, you're screaming at the screen don't go down there, whatever. So good about the orchestrating with this of the way she's kind of driven to him by different other horrifying things throughout the house, like when the body swings down and then the head comes up and she's running upstairs to him. It's really well staged in terms of not feeling bullshitty the way she's moving and why she's moving. Anyway, Ferris.
Oh yeah, Ferris. Oh god, this is actually so engaging. This sequence is so good. It's really hard not to get really invested in it. But we know she's going to make it. We know what happens. So I guess we can, spoiler alert for anyone who's listening to this audio commentary, before watching the movie...
She survives.
She survives, thankfully, because we need
for those
Jamie
of you
Lee.
who are trying to check if you're following along properly, she's just broken out of the house through the window and is running
across the lawn
in a wide shot.
Yeah.
If you're not seeing that,
oh no, she's not.
Over.
This is almost like a Kurosawa thing, the way it's moving, where she starts off in the background, then she moves into the foreground, and we're following her. This is a very Kurosawa thing. Except it's more handheld. That's the difference. Now the lights just turn on in the neighboring house.
Scream for help. Good move. Good move.
This is all one shot.
Light goes back out. Brilliant. No room at the inn.
And they don't help her.
There's no room.
Now we get a cut. All right, to the other house. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Back to Ferris. One thing he did say to Alan, he once asked him. I wasn't there for this, but sometimes when we would wait for class, we'd be in the lounge at the first floor of the building. Mm-hmm. I guess at one time, Ferris just was sitting there with Alan, and he went over he looked at Alan and said, Alan, can I ask you something? Yeah. Am I attractive? He just asked Alan this. And Alan just shook his head, not like in a no, but he just like perplexed. Like,
I don't know what to tell you.
And he said, yeah, he did say that. He did something like that. I don't know what to tell you, Ferris.
I don't know how to answer that one.
I don't know how to answer that question. And that's just one of the. I thought, yep, that's a Ferris thing to do. Just
and that's an Alan way to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
I don't know.
You know what I would have said. You know what I would have said if I were there with Ferris. You know what I would say. I know what I would have said. Ferris, I think that even though I do not pitch for that team, in the sense that I find other men attractive. I'm certain that if I were a gay man, that you'd be near the top of my list. You'd be at least near the top of my list. Because I can say that, and it wouldn't necessarily be lying.
It's very diplomatic.
It's a very diplomatic answer, I think. And I think and again, I wouldn't be lying. So it's like, if I were gay, maybe I would be into you. But I'm not. So it's really hard for me to answer that question otherwise. Ferris is a weird dude in the sense that, for the reasons we just explained, very flat voice, but really enthusiastic person. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact that another person who I knew through IT, mm-hmm. who was gay. He was very open about the fact he was gay. And I think he was trying to come on to me when he was at IT, which I was not okay with. But anyway, he was a roommate with Ferris at one point.
Oh, really?
Which I thought was really funny. I'm sure if I remember more, I could talk more about the stories there. But I remember him just saying, "I would never do that again in my life." After it was over, I could never be roommates with Ferris again.
I can imagine that being a difficult time.
It's like, yeah. I guess Ferris is bisexual. I don't really care.
Yeah,
but it's just something that's
super relevant.
It really isn't super relevant. It's amazing how something about college that makes people more lucid or fluid with their sexuality.
Yeah.
It's a very college thing.
Yeah,
you experiment in college.
Experiment.
I did not. It's one of those things about my personality that I can say, which may be to a fault.
Yeah.
Not only have I never experimented, I've never even thought about experimenting.
Yeah.
I've been pretty certain, and I've even I remember jokes about it in class, in many classes, where I wish I were gay.
It'd be easier. Because
I definitely know for a fact that I definitely get more attention from the gay men than I do from the straight women. So, and there's Donald Pleasance looking for Michael Myers to get him back to the insane asylum, the institute. You weren't there for when we showed this in class.
No, I was there for this one.
Were you? Mm-hmm. Do you remember the theory I had?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that theory?
Yes, please. Because
I remembered.
Actually, that's the moment that, for me, that I was like, I'd like to develop a further.
So that was the moment. I know with Tommy.
For me, that was the moment.
I don't know if I had to ask Tommy, but I remember
this man has some interesting thoughts.
Tommy told me about this from like the first class. There was a moment where I said something about the French New Wave or something, and Tommy just said, "Oh, this guy's." Like, he's seen the same movies as I have, and automatically there was a bonding there.
Tastes.
Even though we didn't have the same taste, we saw the same movies, we were on the same wavelength. Mm-hmm. So from very early on, we got along. With Alan, I remember there was this one time where Alan was presenting something, which he totally bullshitted. But I was there sitting in the front with him, me and Tommy, and so we helped him out of his presentation. And then eventually it devolved into a discussion between me and Tommy about the things that Alan was talking about. And so it was like he basically presented without having to present. I think Alan liked that a lot.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll help.
And so this was the moment, the theory I had in this class, which was that the whole movie, my theory was that this whole film is actually taking place in the mind of Jamie Lee Curtis. Mm-hmm. That the character of Michael Myers does not exist, that she's the one who's doing all the murders. I forget the specifics of the theory. But I was talking a lot about how, this movie there's a lot about psychology and how she's the virgin and all her friends are more sexual and they're the ones who are dying and she's almost jealous of them. She's envious. She's resentful of their sexual, of their open sexuality, the fact that she has to watch over these kids, but at the same time, it's like two parts of her personality that are confronting each other. But then I said, I don't know how the Donald Pleasance character, the psychiatrist, I don't know how he deals in that. But then I remember Aaron said something that actually helped my theory. And at that moment, that was probably the greatest moment I ever had with Aaron. At that moment, I threw my pencil in a moment of like glorious eureka. Clearly, I'm right, God.
What was his comment about that?
I forget, but
I don't remember either.
I remember either. I don't think he remembers, but it was saying something. He said something about and how this character is like we don't ever see this character in the same scene with his other character and how something like that. And I thought, that actually does make perfect sense. Oh God, I am right. Even though I was just completely making it up on the spot.
But it was interesting. I'm not sure it's right, but it's...
Oh, it's not right, but it was very interesting. And again, I was just winging it. I was on a roll that day.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, that was
a good conversation.
That was the thing about that class is I could tell. I'm pretty sure that the other teachers didn't like me.
You don't think so?
Well, I remember that one of the last movie we saw on the last day was Do the Right Thing, the Spike Lee film.
Yeah.
And I don't like Spike Lee.
The Spike Lee joint.
The Spike Lee joint. I am notorious for my dislike of Spike Lee.
I'm not a fan at all, either.
And we're not the only ones. I have other friends of mine who don't like Spike Lee. It's not just specific to me or to you. I think there is something about Spike Lee that turns a lot of people off.
Yes.
For different reasons. But I remember at the end of the class we were discussing the film, and I just remember just going off on it. I remember I don't know if you were there for that last class. You must have been.
I was, but I do think I left early.
Okay, that might have been why. Because I fucking tore that movie a new one, or at least tried to. I remember the teacher just looking at me and thinking, okay. And I remember Alan telling me at one point, again, this is past years, like a year later, he would say, that woman, that other teacher from the other class tried to cut you off. But I thought, well, no, let this, he has something to say. Let him say it. It's a valid argument. I guess Alan was standing up for me, which is nice. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess I was just really tearing that film a new one. And it's just, there's this idea that if you go to film school or if you're a filmmaker, that you have to like every single thing that's ever been made that's considered artistic in even the slightest way.
Yeah,
But that's not how it works. That's considered great, but that's not really how it works. Considering that, Bergman did not like Jean-Luc Godard. Thought his films were shit. There's Mike Myers again.
Always in the background.
This movie is great. This movie is so great. God, this movie is so great. Yeah, but it's okay to dislike movies that are considered masterpieces. That's this thing called taste. And the thing about taste is that it's different for everybody. And if you were to like every single thing that was ever made, that means you have no taste. It doesn't matter if you like good things, because you also like other things that aren't as good. Mm-hmm. You have no modicum of understanding of the difference of quality, which is almost always a subjective thing. But it's important because it establishes
distinction.
It's important to have that distinction.
Yin and yang.
Bergman didn't like Godard, and Godard doesn't like Tarantino. But Tarantino likes both of them, and Godard loves Bergman. But it doesn't matter because everyone's got different taste.
That's right.
For Christ's sake, I don't like Godard either. Tommy loves the French New Wave.
I've only seen one film, but
the one that we saw at Allen's.
Yeah. Oh wait, was that his?
That wasn't Godard, but that was
just French.
Oh, I
like that film.
That was a Jacques Rivette film.
No, Breathless.
There he goes.
The only Godard film that I've seen.
Have you seen? I love whenever John Carpenter talks about Halloween, and he talks about because he was involved creatively with the first three. He wrote the script for the three of them. He was involved as a producer, but then afterwards he just stopped. And then whenever we see him in an interview, he always talks about how someone asks him, "What is your involvement with like?" They're trying to make another Escape from New York or another Halloween. What is your involvement with those movies? I love John Carpenter's response. He always says, what happens, there are two kinds of remakes of my films. The first one is a film like The Thing, which I didn't write. And so the producers take me out to lunch. The second kind, when it's a movie that I wrote, like Halloween or Escape from New York, I sit on my couch and extend my hand out, and a check is placed in that hand. And they make the movie, and they go through all the problems of making a film, and I cash the check. My whole life, I've been trying to make a career out of doing nothing. This is the closest I've ever gotten. I love that story.
That's pretty close.
I love John Carpenter talking about it. And I know they're making another Halloween.
They are, and I know that it's
not. I think he's actually returning as an executive producer.
He is. It's not a reboot, and it's not a
sequel.
Direct sequel. It ignores everything after the second film and is essentially an alternate third movie.
Well, as I understand it, what he wanted to do with Halloween was to make it a series of different films where each film was a different story, and that's what they were trying to do with the third one. Because they thought, I can't do anything more with this Mike Myers character. So the third one has nothing at all to do with Mike Myers, it's Season of the Witch. Which is actually it's the best one after the first one, I think. But yeah, I can't wait for the next. Actually, they're showing this movie at the Logan Theater later this month.
Oh yeah, for their like late night.
For the late night Halloween month.
Excellent.
So what do you think? I think for next week, if this gets put online, you know
Put
what?
it online.
Just so I can start putting things online.
Fabricio will have some sort of work out there. That's all we need.
Yeah. Oh, my startup disk is almost full.
That's good timing.
That's great timing. I don't know how that's possible. But anyway, yeah.
So next week, what do we want to tease for next week? Not that the films are clearly not that the film is relevant to much of the conversation.
Well, next week we're
Background
actually.
noise.
I know for a fact that the next week, with the one we're going to talk about, it's going to be more on topic
Okay.
from Halloween. This was just an excuse for us to talk about college.
Get into the
Because this is something that we saw in college. That was the first time I ever saw this film. Was in Columbia, yeah. Although I'd seen other Carpenter films in high school, but not this one. I loved it.
Yeah, it's really brilliant.
Even though not doing it intentionally, I think the next film we watch will also be a horror film.
Which one?
Do you want me to tease it?
Yeah,
Let's tease it.
Let's tease it.
That's the tease. It'll be related. It'll be a Stephen King film, an adaptation of a Stephen King book.
Well, that narrows it down.
And then the topic of discussion will probably be Stephen King adaptations
In general,
because that's something. There's a lot of them,
and there's a lot of hit and miss.
Oh, they're mostly miss. It's mostly miss.
The one we're watching, I think, if I'm guessing,
it's considered one of the best.
Hit.
It's considered one of the best.
Yes.
So I guess that's all for now. Do you have anything you want to say, Isaac?
No.
Sounding off?
That wraps it up pretty much.
All right. Well, this has been Fabricio Brawl and Isaac Carlson, and this has been Background Noise.
Yeah.
Hope you liked it.
Exactly what it's been.